MeannaDK checking in once again. And
It's just me and my disciples, talking to God while we smoke dope. We keep the lighter in our circle.
how you doing, guys? It's me. And please excuse the copious amounts of baby oil gel. Forgive me for that. Anywho, so I am so excited to be able to bring this live to you, this information to you. And I want to talk about EQ today. Had a few people inbox me and ask me, you know, what is EQ? What is it that you're going to talk about? I don't know a whole lot about it, but I'm willing to tune into the live, right? So I'm grateful for those that are willing to tune into the live. I am going to give a tag to a few people who mentioned that they were interested in this and that they might want to be on board. So just going to give a tag right quick. And so yeah, like if they can come on, that'd be great. If they can't, that's also okay. I hope you guys have had a great day. I have had a pretty long day. What's up, Dizzle Dizzle? Just had a workout next door, and so grabbed a quick shower so I can be available. Okay, so again, we're talking about EQ, okay? And I'm not going to take a lot of time and just try to see who's going to come in and all of that. Like, no, this information is important, and I'm so excited to bring it. So I definitely have some notes. So what is our emotional quotient, right? What is that? That just sounds like a big ass word, right? Well, the emotional quotient is the measurement of emotional intelligence that a person possesses, okay? So if you hear somebody say, you know, your emotional quotient is low, or your emotional quotient is high, or you have a high EQ or low EQ, then you'll kind of know what they're talking about. They're talking about emotional intelligence. And what is that? That is the ability to be able to understand one's own like flaws, one's own feeling. It also helps us with the amount of empathy that we have for other people. It's also good for self-awareness. It helps us with how we deal and interact with other people, right? And so what are some characteristics of emotional intelligence, or what are some characteristics that your EQ is high, right? Okay, so some characteristics of a person with a high emotional quotient would look like someone who has a great deal of self-awareness, someone who has probably like a great deal of empathy for other people, someone who has social skills, someone who is good with motivation, or they can like pep a crowd up or pep themselves up, and it's authentic, it's not fake. You understand what I'm saying? And I think that was 5: self-awareness, motivation, social skills, empathy, and I wrote down motivation twice. It's actually 4. Look at me. So self-awareness, motivation, empathy, and social skills. That is how you would be able to tell if someone possesses a high emotional quotient, or if someone is highly intelligent emotionally, right? Okay, so why do I want to talk about EQ? Like, what is so important about EQ, or what is so important about your level of emotional intelligence, or what is so important? Why is it important to have a higher than it's important to have a higher than average EQ, because it presents itself in all kind of amazing ways in our lives. Okay, it presents itself in a bevy of ways, really, like how you handle people versus how people handle you. It also shows itself up in the workplace, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. We deal with a lot of people who don't like their jobs. They don't like where they go to work. They don't necessarily care for their coworkers. They don't necessarily care for their manager. And we all know that your job is only as good as your direct report. Okay? Your direct supervisor really has a hand in determining how much you are or are not gonna like that place of employment. But with the studying that I found that people who possess high emotional quotients, or people who have a high level of emotional intelligence, they tend to do a little bit better on the job. And I got some stats that I wrote down for you just to like lay it out for you. Okay, so the importance of EQ in the workplace: self-preservation, self-control, and gets along well with others. People who get along well with others and have, self-control, so they're not flying off the handle all the time, those people probably possess an above average level of emotional intelligence, right? And so why is it important? Here are the stats that I came up with. 90% of top performers in all workplaces, they have higher than average EQs. I thought that was very interesting. 58% of a person's job performance is based on their EQ. 58% of how you do in the workplace have everything to do with how you handle yourself and how you handle other people. And that is a part of emotional intelligence, or that is indicative of how high or low your emotional quotient is. Okay. So also, studies show that people who have a high emotional quotient, they earn about $29,000 more per year than a person that does not possess a high emotional quotient. So you can see here that just being able to relate to other people and keep yourself in check ultimately can even lead to having, making more money, being able to dictate what you do and where you go in the workplace, being able to dictate how those promotions come, if they come. All of those things are dictated by your level of emotional intelligence, or your emotional quotient, right? So here's something else I thought was real interesting. You can tell those who suffer from a low EQ by, there are a few fruit that come off that tree, okay? So people who have low EQ, they tend to have a problem being able to manage their emotions, whether they're in private situations, public situations, it doesn't really matter. They tend to have a problem managing their emotions. They tend to not be a person that can play well with other people. You understand what I'm saying? You know how some people, they just carry a vibe that say like, yeah, I don't work well with others. I pretty much like my own shit. And this is pretty much how I do, when I do, right? So that's a person that has a symptom of a low EQ, okay? Another way to see, how someone is struggling, some symptoms of a person with low EQ, they tend to have issues with their blood pressure, high blood pressure, strokes, infertility. It also speeds up the aging process. All of these things, you wouldn't really think about it like, wait, what? So the way I deal with my emotions affect all of that? Yes. Your emotional quotient affects every single thing in your life. It affects everything from if you're going to get that raise or that job. It'll affect what your relationship is going to be like with the people in your life. It affects your ability to be able to empathize with another person. If you ever seen someone and they just seem super uncaring and super unfeeling and not able to relate to anything, chances are they have a very low level of emotional intelligence, or their emotional quotient is very low. And there are plenty of ways to see exactly what yours looks like. What's up, Denisha? How you doing, boo? There is a very simple test that you can take. I will pin it at the end of this live. I will go back and pin the test that you take to determine your level, right? The call to action is very simple. I want everyone to take this test. I want everyone to go online and look up EQ, or emotional intelligence, or emotional quotient, or emotional intelligence, emotional quotient, or EQ. Look online, just Google that, right? And when you Google it, go on and take the test. Take the test to determine what your emotional quotient is. And once you figure out what that test is, the next live that we have about this, which will be next Wednesday, we'll be able to compare. We'll be able to see, okay, I took the test. This is my EQ number. Where does that fall in the spectrum? What are the numbers look like? what does my number mean, right? So based on what your number is, we'll be able to next week talk about those numbers, navigate those numbers, and see like where we are on the spectrum. The cool thing is there's no right or wrong answer. There's no pass or fail on this test. This is just a test to determine where you are on the spectrum, right? So again, I'm going to go ahead and recommend everybody go online and take the emotional quotient test. There are 1,000 free tests out there, okay? I took at least 3 EQ tests so I can see what my score is, right? And I got my score based on the average of the 3 tests that I took. And when we come back next week and you have your number, we'll be able to identify based on your number, like how that works for your life. How do you fall in, and how does that number dictate where you are, right? So like for instance, if I am a business owner, then it would behoove me to work on my emotional intelligence. It would behoove me to work on my EQ. Why? Because if employees on average in corporate America make $29,000 more per year, if their emotional quotient is high, if you know that 90% of all top performers in Fortune 500 companies have a high EQ level, if you know that 58% of your work performance will be dependent upon the EQ level that you possess, it will behoove all of us to know what our EQs are so we know what we got to work on versus what we don't got to work on. If this is, something that we can get with versus something that we can't get with. This is also something that doesn't matter if you're male or female. Like that's one question that they never ask because they don't really care. Emotional intelligence is not gender specific. Emotional intelligence is not something that is dedicated to one gender only. Like women don't automatically have higher EQs than men. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's not going to be just because you're a woman, I know you're going to have a high EQ because women are emotional. Has nothing to do with that. So again, I encourage everyone to go online and take the test. Take the EQ test and see where you shake out. You understand what I mean? And then next week, we'll get into how this translates in, how it shows up. You understand what I'm saying? We'll get into like what it looks like. What are the fruits of high emotional intelligence, right? What are the fruits of low emotional intelligence? We went over a couple of them. Blood pressure issues, stress. What else did it say? Infertility. And it says that it speeds up the aging process. So that should let you know how important it is, right? Have you ever seen somebody that's just always mad or they always mean or something always wrong? And they be looking old as shit because something always wrong. However, that's indicative of a person that does not have a high emotional quotient, right? So we want to be sure that we're able to identify certain things when we see it. We want to make sure that when we're dealing with a person, it doesn't matter who they are, and they exhibit certain things, it'll behoove us to know, oh, okay, this person probably has a low EQ. Okay, now let's talk about EQ and IQ and how they're different. IQ and EQ have nothing to do with each other. So sometimes we assume that because a person is highly intelligent, that they automatically have low EQ, but that's not true. A person can be highly intelligent and highly emotional intelligent at the same time. A person can also be highly emotionally intelligent and dumb as a box of rocks. So there's no... I can't believe I'm lost for words. There's no standard picture of what that should look like, if that makes sense, okay? So a person who is highly intelligent, like let's say Bill Gates or something like that, he could also have a very, very high emotional quotient. It just depends, because if you have a low one, it can be worked on, but I don't want to get into that because that's next week. So next week, we'll talk about how you can work on it. But this week, we're talking about just establishing what it is and establishing how it plays a role in your life, right? And establishing what yours is. So again, my call to action for everyone is to go online, just go to Google and type in emotional quotient, EQ, or emotional intelligence, and take the test and let me know where you score on the test. And then next Wednesday, when we talk about this again, because this is something that I'm going to talk about probably until the new year. This is something we're going to work on every week so we can all get better, right? So when we talk about this next week on Wednesday, everybody will not only know exactly what it is we're dealing with, but they'll also have their own individual numbers, so that we'll be able to you'll be able to look at your number right in front of you and say, okay, this is my number. What does this mean for me? And I'm real interested. I think we're going to have more men with higher emotional quotients than we thought. I think that because this is anonymous and nobody is saying, hey, this is John Henry taking this test. You understand what I mean? Like, they're not recording your name and age and all of that shit. Everybody can feel free to be honest on the test and say exactly what it is that you would do. And then they'll give you your number. And then we'll go back and, we'll compare and contrast and all of that jazz. Okay. So that was my call to action. I want to thank you guys who jumped on and have been here with me for the last almost 20 minutes. I appreciate it. I'm going to try to keep these emotional quotient lives to 25 minutes or less. That's my goal. So we can, hit it and quit it. Because what's true is adults, as awesome as we are, we can't really sit here and learn stuff for more than 45 minutes at a time without needing a 10-minute break. And that's all adults. That's how our brains work. So I'm not going to overload you with a bunch of damn information when I know damn well that that's not how we work. You understand what I'm saying? So guys, go ahead, take the test. Keep your scores either screenshotted or whatever. Now you can just take the one EQ test, or you can take several if you feel like, okay, let me just take a few more just so I can know where I line up on that, and then we'll kind of just go from there. Okay. So, yeah, I just want everybody to take the test, and I'll see you guys. Of course, I'll be live again probably tomorrow. But in terms of talking about this specific issue, I'll be live again next Wednesday talking about this specific issue and how it affects us in the workplace and how effective we are in the workplace with the number that we possess. Okay? Okay, so anyways, until next time, I am MeannaDK, and this has been this morning's cup, and I love y'all. I swear I do. Good night.
This is the ending of my video.
Oh, thank y'all for watching.